So I just wanted to do a quick video outlining the differences between the Dyson V6 Motorhead and the V7 Motorhead. These are really similar vacuums, but they have a few differences that are worth noting, especially given how long this thing lasts and how much it costs. Just for reference, I've been using this V6 for a number of years now, and it's starting to kind of show the end of its life. So I moved over to this V7, which I recently purchased. Okay, let's run into those differences now. Just as far as the specifications go, Dyson will tell you on their website that the battery life on the V7 is more than the V6. This is rated for 30 minutes. V6 is rated for 20 minutes, despite having pretty much the same size battery. Next, the V7 is a little bit heavier than the V6. When you pick the two up, one after the other, you could definitely tell that the V7 has, I don't know, maybe half a pound, 3/4 of a pound on the V6. It's not a huge deal, but if you're using this thing all the time, you can tell the difference. Next, as far as suction power goes, Dyson says that the V7 has better suction power, specifically at the beater head, which is the spinning part at the end of the vacuum. I haven't been able to test that yet, and I don't really have a great way to test the suction power, but they do say the V7 is the more powerful of the two. Of course, the V8 is their most powerful cordless vacuum. Next up, we can see that the V6 uses a button here, and that button is what keeps the extension piece locked in place. It's gray and it's built into the main body of the vacuum. It's a little bit problematic because if this gets old or breaks or wears out, it's built into the main component, which is pretty expensive. The V7, they just put a notch in here and they've moved the button over to the extension piece. This way, if this ever wears out or breaks or the spring falls out, you just need a new extension piece. You don't need a new part of your vacuum. You could see that the button is now red. Basically, any interactive elements on a Dyson, they're usually a bright color. So even if you've never used this vacuum before and never seen the instruction manual, you know, oh, this is red, I can push it. The pieces tend to fit in a little bit better now. They just feel like just a bit more solid when they click in. It's not a huge difference, but it's a nice to have type of difference. Next is the max button. This is what you press to get the most power possible out of your vacuum. So it was on the back here, and it was confusing because if you push it like this, it doesn't do anything. You have to have the vacuum active to engage it, which is, again, just like really counterintuitive and strange. With the V7, Dyson has moved over to a switch. So basically, this is not in max mode. Now it is in max mode. Very simple, very intuitive, like kind of a no-brainer. So I'm glad they did that. Next up, and this is one of the biggest differences, is that the V6 has a very simple mechanism for cleaning. For cleaning the bin out, for emptying the bin. You just push this down, the bin opens. So the problem with this is that the bin ends up being really close to this vacuum, to that cowl. So everything gets stuck up here. It's basically a flawed design. And Dyson has acknowledged that with a change in the V7 and also the V8. So now the bin has been changed, or the way you clean the bin at least has been changed. To do it now, you pull this piece up and this whole head piece picks up, and you could see now the bin is unobstructed. And when the bottom opens, everything could come right out. And if you had to get your hand in here, you can do that quite easily, but you really don't have to. To close the bin, you just push it down, lock it in place. It's a more confusing process, but it works really well. And last change, I will just go over some of the aesthetic changes. You can see this is oblong or ovular, I guess. whereas here it is circular. Not a big deal, just like kind of an interesting design tweak. Also on the V6, this area right here is it's kind of a foam. It's like metallic, but obviously it's not metal, and it has tended, for me at least, to get kind of scratched up where that metal sort of like chipped off or just kind of got roughed up. The V7, it's metallic, but it doesn't have that same sort of metal look. It's kind of this 3D violet, or kind of a textured finish. Slightly different. I think it looks a lot nicer. Also with the V7, you could see it's red over here. Again, this is actually an interactive component, so it makes sense that it's red. Trigger's red. Bin release is all red. Those are things you touch and use. They're red. With the previous Dyson, red, makes sense. This is, and then this piece right here is purple to sort of match the extension piece and the other things, but it's not red to mark it as an interactive element. And obviously this button is gray and camouflaged in there. So yeah, that's the Dyson V7 versus the V6, and those are just the differences between the two. The pricing is pretty similar. I won't really get into that so much because they have the same MSRP, but now that the V6 is so old, we're seeing this go for, I think, under $300, or well under $300, whereas this V7 is pretty much available at or near MSRP, or whatever, like at or near the street price at this point. So yeah, that's it. Any questions or comments or anything like that, please leave them below. Thanks for watching.